In this example, we're going to look at why a change of sign implies a root. Let's first consider what we mean by a root of an equation such as x minus 2 sine x equals 0. A root of this equation is a value of x, which if we substitute in to the expression x minus 2 sine x, will actually evaluate to give 0. In other words, a root is a value of x which satisfies the equation, so that the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. Let's look at what this means on a graph. Suppose we have the graph of y equals f of x. In this case, f of x is x minus 2 sine x. We're interested in when y is equal to 0, and we know the line y equals 0 is the x-axis. So we're interested in where the curve crosses the x-axis. If we look at this curve, we can see it crosses between minus 2 and minus 1. We saw in the first example that there was a change in sign of this function between x was minus 2 and x was minus 1. And we can now see on the graph that there is a root in this interval. The same here, we can see there's a root between 1 and 2. Here we have a close-up of the root on the graph y equals f of x. The true value of the root is this value alpha. This is where the curve actually crosses the x-axis. If we look to the left of the root, we have a value a, and f of a is less than 0 since the graph is below the x-axis at this point. If we look to the right of the root, to a value b, f of b is greater than 0 since the curve is above the x-axis at this point. Clearly, if the graph is continuous and below here and above here, then somewhere in between it must cross the axis. And this is why a change of sign implies a root. If the curve is below the axis at one point and above the axis at the other, then it must cross somewhere in between, provided the curve is continuous and has no break in it. Equally well, the curve could slope down this way, and we would have a change in sign, with the curve being above the axis on this side and below the axis on this side. So any change of sign implies a root between the 2 points.